Pollen's really gotten me too, and it's all over my car. So much for washing it. So you gotta do what I do. Get a yellow car. Boom. I'm just a little Tygre, a little kitty on the internet. I heard that was cake. Oh, do you mean this cake? Oh my god, I'm so stumpy. Sometimes when I look at that angle, I look like a stump. Baby man. Redneck Moto. I like 'em big. I like 'em chunky. Hold on, there's a joke to be made here. What do you call... Wait. What do you call Beta if he gets a job at a circus? A carnivore. Yes! Chat! Comedy! Comedy. Iron is good for you. Iron is a vitamin. Iron is required for your body to function normally. You're not fucking chomping on an iron ingot. You're not like going up to the blacksmith in Skyrim and just whipping one of those iron ingots right in your mouth hole. Wait, we're not supposed to eat ingots, dude. Right? Fuck. You look like a gold ingot. You look at a gold ingot like that looks like forbidden Easter candy. Like a Toblerone. Guys, I have a fun discussion for today. I figured today's the day we talk about undies. Undies in the furry community, what undies stand for, what they mean. Beta's like, you have to make a video. Shed some light on the situation. Should we talk about undies, chat? I want to preface this conversation. So undies, right? Underwear, undergarments, underpants. Oh, underoos. Oh, chat, underoos still get produced. So guys, underwear. What is it about underwear that people find appealing? Well, let's break it down, right? There's something to be said for leaving a little bit to mystery, right? There's a compromised, like if you look at somebody in underwear, it's almost like this vulnerability, compromised state that in a way makes them a little bit more innocent. It softens, it kind of softens their appearance a little bit, right? Nudity is very sexually charged in some situations, right? Obviously, when you're like changing in the locker room, no. And you're getting a physical examination at the doctor, no. That's none of those sexually charged. But ultimately, nudity is the most sexually charged state. But there's something comforting in that like emotional vulnerability and physical vulnerability that comes along with wearing undies, right? A little bit to the mystery, a little bit of excitement. You learn a little bit about them. You know, and like the thing about undies is a lot like pajamas, right? It's a article of clothing that in other social situations, like out in public, is not appropriate, but at home, it's like your ultimate state of comfort, unfettered, it's just openness and comfiness. It's like when you have a friend over and they fall asleep on your couch. There's a level of wholesomeness to that because they feel comfortable enough and safe enough around you to fall asleep. It's like that, you know, you're in your undies, you feel safe and warm in a situation enough to be able to make yourself vulnerable like that. So if you're thinking from a wholesome perspective, that's all undies really are. Somebody's most comfortable state. Some people find that comfortability in nudity alone, and that's okay. But then, you know, there's a major appeal for undies. Now, from like a sexual standpoint, the appeal of undies is very vanilla. It really is. It's just something that people see as like, oh, leaves a little bit to the mystery. Sometimes the type of underwear they wear can indicate a lot about their personality, right? You know what I mean? Like somebody wears like, you know, like a jockstrap or something. From a sexual standpoint, you can learn a lot about somebody based off of their underwear, right? You can base it off a lot of, like, you know, somebody's wearing boxers, just like loose-fitting boxers. There's something about what they seek in terms of, like, freedom and breathability. Alternatively, something that, you know, a little bit more secure, tighter. It tells you a lot. Something defines the body and the physiology, you know? Something contours their body. And that's another thing kind of conceals the contouring. And people find a lot of, like, enjoyment from that type of visual. I personally do as well. I find it simple, easy, not overly sexual to the point where like I feel like a person's being compromised or over sexualized. Very vanilla. And in the furry community, I think that with the depiction of people's like their sonas, right, being otherwise like handsome or cute, you know, fluffy, in the realm of cuteness, that you can put a little bit of clothing on them to just amplify that, right? Sometimes people put a little bit of some glasses on, make them look a little smart. Somebody put a little like harness on them, you know, makes them like a little extra spicy, a little extra lewdness. And then some people throw on undies. It gives them that innocence, like kid watching cartoons on Saturday morning type of visual, you know, a level of innocence. Of course, depending on how things are drawn or portrayed, they can be much less innocent. You know, you could start to make anything sexual, really, depending on how you draw it. But generally, those small things play a huge part. It plays a huge part in how people changed ever so slightly. They're like to portray a little bit of their personality. I spent an entire day in just boxer briefs because I have nowhere to go. Dude, I've spent like 3 days straight in just undies because I had nowhere to go. So we've talked about undies in general. What makes them exciting? From like a general standpoint, they're very vanilla. You know, it's a state of vulnerability. It's a state of comfort. That's wonderful. Knowing somebody's at their like peak comfortability, it's a very endearing idea. On a sexual side, it leaves, you know, a little bit to the imagination, but not a lot. You can learn a lot about their sexual preferences, you know, based on the underwear that they wear. How innocent and playful are they? How serious are they? You know, if you show up and you're wearing like lingerie-esque, you understand that they're like more sexually edgy. If they're wearing something a little bit more reserved, perhaps they're a little less explorative. Maybe they're a little bit more shy, a little bit more passive. You know, somewhere in the between, right? You could either be wearing like a thong and know like, okay, they're into some good stuff. You could wear some boxers and they're like, oh, they're a little bit more, I don't know, freeform and a little less serious about life. And then there's people in between wearing like briefs and they're like, they like a little bit of body accentuation, but they don't want to like compromise comfortability. You know, they want support, but a little bit of sexiness. Now in the furry community, there's all these niches, right? I mean, you got micro, macro, right? You got vor. You got, what are the other ones, chat? Paws and maws. Fursuits can be, yes, fetishized, right? Mersuiting. Inflation. Pool toys. Beans, exactly. Lewd nuzzles. All of it counts. Undies goes in that category, and I would argue that undies is a very large one. There's a community on, like, Twitter and in the, like, furry sphere, right? That transcends Twitter into, like, Telegram and, like, other forms. For undies, it's very I think it's because it's just simple enough to fly under the radar, right? Where like you can express it publicly. You don't have to like, you're not going horny on main per se, right? You don't need to reserve it to your AD specifically, but it's still in that realm of like there's something sexually charged about it. In this grand scheme of all those niches, undies is one, but it's much more on the vanilla side. And thus it can fly under the radar, and it can be a little bit more, I think that it can be a little bit more, you can be a little bit more forward with it, outwardly, right? And you can like just turn it into something like entirely innocent, and just make it kind of like a character trait of your sona. And I think that I live in that camp. Yes, you know, you can get some sexual pleasure from it. I know that that's something I'm into, but it primarily lives in that side of innocence where it makes me feel adorable. I've always wanted to be adorable. I got into this fandom so I could embrace adorability, you know? And that just kind of helps feed into that narrative, and I love that. It makes me feel comfy and cozy. It makes me feel like just the right level of vulnerable and excitement. Now, within those like different types of underwear, hey, I'm talking about important topics here. So if you were like growing up, right? I mean, and probably, okay, I was on the tail end of like the old times, you know, where like up until like high school, everybody was like tighty whities, and then high school was like boxers. But if you were like in high school and then somebody caught you wearing tighty whities, there was like the stigma of like, oh, you're still like, you're a baby, or, you know, like you're uncool. Some people like find an affinity for tidy whities because of that the innocence that comes along with it, the vulnerability and the feeling like, ooh, this is like taboo. Like I like, oh my gosh, what if I got caught? You know, people love that. I'll admit that I find that appealing. And then there's the alternatives, like wearing something like a lot more like something more revealing, right? Gives you a similar sense of sexiness, you know, just for different reasons. So yes, like my affinity for like briefs, right, comes along with that reclaiming that innocence. If I had to diagnose myself, right, based on what I understand of my childhood trauma and the information that I gained after the fact from like therapy and stuff, there's a reason why I have an affinity for coddling, you know, being coddled, being treated like somebody taking care of me, you know, trying to reclaim that youthfulness that I wasn't given as a child. You know, when you go through something really traumatic, you're forced to mature very rapidly. And so like now as an adult, I have the means and the time and the confidence to embrace those things again. I love being cuddled. I love being held. I love being called baby man. I like being little. I mean, you guys can see my avatar. Some people don't realize how small this one's actually much larger than what I normally use, but I mean, like, can I hold this? I mean, here's a coffee cup. I'm little. I'm a little guy. I'm significantly shorter than most other avatars, right? So yes, I like briefs. I like tidy whities. Because that's what I wore as a kid. When you go through childhood trauma, it forces you to mature really rapidly, and thus, you know, you feel robbed. And as you begin to explore your mental health as an adult, when you begin to unlock those emotions, you can find yourself like pining for that type of behavior and character that you missed out on. You want to try and reclaim that, and I find that that's what I think I fell into the category, and that's why I find that thing. So it's not so much sexual as it is like an overall encompassing. It's a part of a whole, you know, that completes me for the person I would love to be. So yeah, I mean, people wonder like, people ask me all the time, hey, what's your deal with undies? You know, like, yeah, I mean, I find like that the sexual side of it taps into something that I find very enjoyable, but to me, more importantly, I just find that it's a way to embrace this younger side of me that I missed out on. You know, I can wear the tidy whities and feel like I'm back in the, you know, middle school days where life was really fucking hard and traumatic and a lot of things happen. And I can go back to feeling like innocent and young, youthful.